There is no way in hell a woman knows anything about computers. Get me a manager. This is a story about a dude who's a racist, who gets arrested for thinking women can't fix computers. I must say the story is pretty wild. So without further ado, here's what happened. Back in 2006, I worked for one of those big box stores that had an IT desk, formerly known as Nerd Herd, where people could bring devices in to get service if there was a problem. We were located in Columbus, Georgia, which is right over the bridge from Phoenix City, Alabama. This is important because where our store was placed, we would normally get a lot of servicemen and women coming up from Fort Benning who were generally pretty cool. But we would also get folks, mostly from Alabama, who were, let's just say, slightly unfavorable to folks of a certain skin color or gender. Now, I'm a 5'1" girl who, at the time, weighed a total of 120 pounds soaking wet. I was practically a hobbit. I was also one of the lead technicians in the department. I was the one the new hires went to if they were confused or couldn't troubleshoot certain problems. The team I worked with was amazing. The general manager of the store was great, and the supervisor of my department was the man. I would regularly go out for drinks with these people. One of the best places I've ever worked, even though it was retail. One day, I'm working the counter to check customers in and do evaluations and diagnostics to give an estimate of what the repair price would be. In comes, let's call him Joe. He's wearing a cut-off t-shirt, worn denim jeans, and a baseball cap with Confederate flag on it that just barely covered his business in the front, party in the back haircut. I am not one to judge on looks. I've had plenty of people come in looking exactly the same way this guy did, who have been an absolute delight to work with. Never judge a book by its cover, kids. But I still have my defenses up just in case. I really hoped it wasn't going to go the not-so-friendly route. I was unfortunately wrong about Dear Joe. Joe walks up to the counter with his PC tower and practically slams the unit on the desk and lets us know that he needs it fixing. I start speaking, letting him know I'll take a look at it, and Joe just completely cuts me off and has this look of disgust on his face. I was super confused at this point, so I started again repeating myself just for him to cut me off again, this time screaming, "Oh, hell no!" It was at this point that I realized where this was inevitably going to go wrong. I told him that unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to give an estimate if he doesn't let me check the computer out to diagnose it. Joe then screams for the whole store to hear, "There's no way in hell a woman knows about computers. I'm not letting you touch my computer. Get me the manager." Oh, yes, I thought. This is going to be awesome. I'm sure he wanted to talk to the general manager of the store, but I couldn't resist. Cue malicious compliance. I could have pulled the "I'm the manager" thing because I was one of the senior staff, but my direct boss was actually out back working on repair projects, and I couldn't help but get excited about how this was going to go down. Me, as lovely as sweet tea. "Of course, sir, right away, sir." Mike, my supervisor, the guy who ran our department, was elbow deep in a motherboard replacement when I walked in and gave him the biggest grin. Me, "Hey Mike, there's a guy out there asking for the manager." He looks at me confused because he was just supervisor. But I then proceed to tell him exactly what was waiting for him out front. His face split into the brightest smile. He then proceeded to walk out to the front. Have I mentioned that Mike is a 6'3", 280-pound black man who looked like he could eat a Mack truck for lunch? He was such a big, lovable teddy bear. We all adored him. The moment Mike stepped out, the customer freaked out. When Mike asked if there was a problem, Joe lost it. It started with a "hell no" before devolving into a racist tirade that I've never witnessed in my life. Joe kept screaming using the nastiest slur, you know the one, over and over again while staff and customers alike watched in blatant horror. Security ended up having to come over to try to calm the man down. Our entire security team was black as well, so naturally, Joe went even more crazy. Eventually, the police had to be called because the man was threatening me, calling me a big head and cow, and threatening security and my boss, using that word that is not okay. My general manager got called out of his office and immediately called the police to have the man removed. God bless whichever dispatcher who received the call was, because they dispatched 2 black officers to the scene. Me and my general manager were literally the only white people involved in this train wreck, aside from Bigoted Joe, and I watched with unbridled glee as Joe was cuffed and taken away by the police. Watching Joe foam at the mouth as he was dragged away made my whole week. I personally find it really hard to accept that people like this exist, but unfortunately, it's likely that they will always be around. The rate of racism and sexism is definitely better in recent years, but it really just shouldn't exist. You did a great job of keeping her cool. I would have completely lost my marbles if I was disrespected like that. I'm glad that this guy got taken out of the store. I'm sure that everyone was thankful for the security guards and the police officers who helped you out with this. It's hilarious that more and more black men kept coming in. I bet that had him raging. Hopefully, you don't come across any more bigoted idiots anytime soon. I still have one question for OP. What happened to the dude's PC? So you need a man's brain to do all that? Okay. Since I was 11, my parents are divorced. My mother got custody and we would see our father one weekend every 2 weeks. I have also a little sister, so I ended up being the only man in the house. Growing up, our mother always taught us that we need to participate in house duties, such as washing the dishes, taking out the laundry, preparing food. We would take turns, and during the week, us children would take care of all that, because our mother would come back from work exhausted and expected not to have anything to do once at home. Only that as young children, we would sometimes forget to do stuff and it would cause a fight, but we ended up learning to not forget. Only, there are some tasks that wouldn't be fairly distributed. My mother always needed a man close so that she could give him some work to do. And even though she never remarried and only dated 1 or 2 men after she divorced, she always found some male friend or some friend's husband/boyfriend to whom she could ask for help. Until at some point, people started to realize that she was being close to them for the only purpose that she could ask them for help. So basically, she lost a few friends. But at some point, I was old enough to be useful, and she started asking me for help on these matters. OP, the internet box doesn't work anymore. Can you look it up? It needs a man's brain to understand that. OP, I bought some furniture from IKEA. Can you build it for me? It needs a man's brain to understand that. OP, can you carry luggages? Only a strong man can do that. OP, can you look up why my computer is being so slow? It needs a man's brain to understand that. And so on. I asked repeatedly that she looked at how I dealt with these things, so that she could understand herself and fix it alone next time, especially when it was something so basic as to restart the internet box. But she didn't want to learn. She just wanted me to do it because she didn't want to have to deal with it herself. And it went on for a few years, growing from just restarting the box to piercing onto walls so that she could hang mirrors and stuff. For info, I never did anything of all that before she asked me to do it, so I guess it made me learn it, which is a good thing. But what bothered me was that she just didn't care and expected me to do all that because it was normal, and me knowing about it or not was not a question. I'm a man, so that's my job. And as I was growing up and her still not learning anything, I got more and more frustrated. Until this one final time, I don't remember what specific task it was, where she told me that it was a man's job needing a man's brain. I had a huge sigh, did the job, then went back to my business. Cue the malicious compliance. As some tasks require a man's brain, it is obvious that some others require a woman's touch, as we men are all about technique, big thinking, and strength work. So the following days, I started to wash the dishes and put them back anywhere in the kitchen, because us men have no idea about what goes where in a house. We just fix things and carry heavy stuff. I forgot to put food back in the fridge because, that's already cooked so it won't spoil. I overcooked my steaks, eggs, pizza because, I was so busy thinking about all these technique stuff that I didn't have the brain space to think about checking food. Laundry would be spread to dry, one piece onto another because it was more efficient as it saved space. And about cleaning the house, let's just say it was a waste of time because I could perfectly live in my own mess. Of course, it didn't take long for my mother to get angry at me for not taking care of the house, or for doing it so stupidly. To which I answered, sorry, it needs a woman's brain to understand how to take care of a house correctly. Which, yes, is totally sexist. But so is saying that all the work she made me do was for men only. So at first, she was dumbfounded. Then the storm unleashed. It still is one of the biggest fights we had to this day. Things calmed down and I went back to caring properly, until she asked for my man's brain again. From this point, I stopped caring. I would forget the laundry in the washing machine, let the dishes pile up in the sink, and would only do my man's job. She would still get really angry, ordering me to do stuff, which I would ultimately do, completely half-assed. Meaning that she had to do it all over after me because half of the dishes were just out on the kitchen, not at their place, laundry was all stuck together to dry, and so on. Mood in the house was tense, and it wouldn't need much for a fight to blow up, until at some point she asked me to help her do this or that, not to do it for her anymore. So I helped. I showed her how to do it, I took time for it, we did it together multiple times, until she finally learned how to do it. I then started taking care of my duties as I did before, and things went back to normal. Finally. I spoke Armenian and paid the price. I am Armenian American, and I look kind of Armenian and kind of American, but I have a ginger beard. I was wearing basketball shorts and a black t-shirt, along with my white gold necklace. I went to Best Buy with a friend and his mother, and we were in the home theater section. As I am helping them pick out some speakers and explaining, in Armenian, how the home theater components work, I feel a tug on my necklace. Now, this necklace was given to my father from his now-deceased mother, and he gave it to me. It means a lot to me. I felt the tug on my chain and turned around angrily to see a man in his mid-40s or so. I'll call him Andy. Andy snidely says to me, "Can you hurry up with them and help out the rest of the other people here? And you shouldn't be talking in foreign languages in America, especially while you're working." I told him I don't work here and that if he was to touch me again, we were going to have a problem. Andy still thinks I'm an employee and responds, "You don't get to talk to customers like that and still have a job. Where's your manager? This isn't whatever pothole you came from. You can't treat people like this." The irony was not lost on me, and I was getting very mad. My friend knows that when I start smiling while I'm angry, I get a little stupid. So he tells me to relax and kind of guides me away from him. Security is coming over to us at this point, as the asshole has decided to follow my friend and me. Andy keeps ranting as I'm trying to stay calm, and my friend is doing his best impression of a peace-filled monk. For context, I have a shaved head to go with the beard, and I don't look super friendly. Security comes over to me first, and he asks me to go with him. I agree and tell my friend and his mother to come to get away from the asshole. As security is walking with us to sort out what is going on, Andy decides to poke the side of my face. This causes a problem as I push him away angrily, but thankfully my friend grabs me and keeps me from retaliating. The asshole then spits on my friend while trying to spit on me, and he says some more racist things. Security goes to grab Andy, but before he gets there, we hear a loud smack and see Andy stumble a few steps to the left. My friend's mother, she is in her late 50s, we are both in our 20s, had taken off her thick-soled immigrant sandal and smacked the man on the side of his face. Hard. Very hard. If anyone knows what those sandals are like, they are the ultimate weapon in the hand of a mother. I'd rather deal with a Navy SEAL than a mother with those sandals. Security tackles the guy. My friend calms down his mother, and cops arrive. After reviewing the tape and taking statements, the guy gets arrested for a couple counts of assault and battery. I get confused for a worker all the time, especially if I speak Armenian to someone else. This was the first time it had gotten physical, and only the third time I had a confrontational exchange about it. I couldn't believe it had actually happened for another couple hours, and still I'm weirded out about it. We ended up getting a sweet deal for some ELAC speakers for him, so it was a net positive experience. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I don't understand how hard it was for the asshole to understand that you don't work there for him the first time you told him. Also, don't greet someone by pulling on their necklace. A simple hello would have done the job. It's obvious to me he was trying to pick an issue in the store, and when he heard you speak another language, he just couldn't contain his racism. The security of the store did a good job of looking over all the evidence before jumping to conclusions, and fortunately, they gave you a good discount, which is a nice gesture to apologize for you having to experience racism in their stores. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell. Check out the other videos on your screen right now, otherwise, you're definitely the jerk.